Welcome to Wildspire. You get to be a fly on the wall for my intimate conversations with entrepreneurs who are changing the world. I'm your host, Stephanie Benedetto, coach, storyteller, and unmarketer at The Awakened Business, helping coaches and change-making entrepreneurs unleash their inspired message and share it with playful unmarketing. I'll ask curious questions and explore uncharted waters with my guest today. Anything can happen when we step into the unknown of infinite creativity, and that's where we're going to play. My podcast guest today is Mavis Karn, and I really couldn't be more pleased to introduce you to someone. Mavis is my mentor's mentor. And this conversation, it was so special to have this conversation with her, and yet also completely natural. It only happened because I reached out to ask, and she said yes. Thank goodness I did. You may notice Mavis's talent for dancing around praise in this conversation and also clearly celebrating the person in front of her. What emerges through her is wise, simple, and hopeful. Let me tell you a little more about Mavis Karn. Mavis Karn is a counselor, educator, and a consultant in private practice in St. Paul, Minnesota, in the U.S. She spent over 45 years working with individuals, families, businesses, hospitals, schools, prisons, government agencies and treatment centers, police departments and nonprofits, law firms, Native American tribes and agencies, individual athletes and teams and coaches and therapists, and so on and so on. Her work has taken her all over the U.S. and to South Africa, as well as most recently to many countries on Zoom. While all this may appear impressive, Mavis reminds us that she is in the evening of her life, and it took her quite a while for this list to grow. In the end, though, it has all seemed to her to be simply a moment-to-moment accumulation of time spent doing what she loves to do, passing on the best information she ever got in her life to anyone who's interested in hearing it. It is my pleasure to introduce you to Mavis Karn. So Mavis, I am so excited to have you on my podcast. I'm so excited to have you here. And, I'm feeling compelled to confess something now.
Uh-oh.
Yes.
Be careful. You're recording this.
Oh, I know. For a long time, I was afraid to do things like reach out and ask you to be on my podcast. Partly because maybe I have some kind of pedestal that I might have put you on, or because I felt like I didn't want to be one of those people who was like asking for things. I'm making the face as I say it, but I'm so glad that I did.
Excuse me.
Because
so you thought ask without asking.
Is that what I did?
Well, I don't know. That's what I do.
How do you ask without asking?
Well, I don't know, but it's not a pleading thing. It's just, I think it's just knowing ahead of time that we're all the same. That it's like we're all the same, but just think about this. It's like in all of creation, there are no duplicates of anything. Not a grain of sand, a blade of grass, a tree, a flower, a human being, a giraffe, a bird. There are no duplicates of anything. And yet we're all made of the same stuff. We're all made of the same elements. only in completely different configurations. I got a lot of faith in anything that can pull that off. So we're all, somebody once said, we're all a cell in the body of the whole. Isn't that cool? I don't know who said that, but it's like, so there's nobody to be afraid of. There's nobody that's better than you. There's nobody that's worse than you. We just have all these thoughts that keep us from doing something we really want to do and should do. Now, how do we get into that?
It's a good can of worms. I like that one. I want to share something that I've been seeing that reminds me of this, Mavis. Recently, I started doing some things that are really new for me. One of them being learning the Portuguese language now that I'm living in Portugal. And another is taking dance lessons. As a person who was told that they danced like Ellen on Seinfeld, which I don't know if you ever watched Seinfeld, but that's not a good thing. It's not usually meant as a compliment.
Oh, I think she's a cool dancer. Just like she can put some joy into walking around.
Yes. So I had a story that I'm a horrible dancer and I know nothing about dancing. And for the first time in my life, I've been showing up with learning these new things completely okay and even expecting that I'm going to suck at them. Like I'm not going to be good at them. They're brand new. And it's been so liberating. And just yesterday, I realized that, well, lo and behold, if I show up with something regularly, just show up with it and engage with it, I get better.
Who knew?
And, and this is so obvious, right? I knew this conceptually, but for so long, I kept myself from trying a lot of things that I knew or thought I knew. I made up I wasn't going to be good at, right? Because it was at the beginning and I'd never done it before. So I just didn't do them and I didn't even see. And now I'm having so much fun not knowing and I just keep throwing myself at it. Just keep throwing myself into it. And lo and behold, I learned something every time. It just happens, right? You're talking about that, the way we're made and how unique and like we're made to learn and grow when we engage with things. And
so this is the second time in your life you're doing that. You came into the world doing it. There was some research. I really like reading research, but I can never remember who did it. But some people followed around a group of children from the time they were, I think, preschool, 3 or 4 or whatever. And they followed them periodically for 10 years. And they asked them the same questions, a bunch of questions. And among them were, how many of you can sing? Now, at 3 or 4 or 5, everybody raised their hand. Right? How many of you can dance? Everybody raised their hand. And they kept asking them things like that. The older they got, the fewer people raised their hands. Until there were very few people at the end of 10 years that thought they could sing or dance or do any of the evidence. What do you make of that?
me too. I didn't.
Isn't it a shame for all of us that we got miseducated away from knowing we can try anything?
Yeah.
Like anybody can sing. Everybody can dance. Well, it's a little hard if you don't have legs, but people find out how to move around in wheelchairs and so. But everybody can do all of that all the time. But they think you can't do it unless you're this good or that good or whatever. It's too bad. But we can see now that it was just a misunderstanding, that it was just a limitation of thought that we got taught. It isn't, none of it is true. So you're rediscovering what you knew when you came into the world.
And it's so much fun without the weight of all of that thinking about comparison and judgment and, oh, because, everyone's looking at me, like they have nothing better to do than to stare at me and judge my performance.
Yeah, that's true. They have nothing better to do.
And without that, it's just fun. It's just trying. And I still sometimes feel a little discouraged or maybe a little frustrated for a moment, but not for very long. I feel like those little toddlers when they're learning how to walk and, they get up and sometimes they're like, they fall down and then they just go, la, la, and they get back up again. I really am rediscovering that. And it's wonderful. And now I know it's portable. Like if I can do this here in learning a language, I can do this with anything that I think I can't do or I don't know how to do or I've never done before.
Yeah. Can't be that simple. But what if it is?
It can't be.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that simple.
This is too good of a cue for me not to bring it in now. This is the title of Mavis's book. It's that simple, a user's manual for human beings. And I do hear that as it's a beautiful title because every time I've heard you speak, that's what I feel. I feel that you let things be as simple as they are. And I feel it. And
simple as they are, whether I let them be or not. So.
Well, I hear it. I hear it in the way you talk about it. What made you write that book, this book that I have in my hands?
Michael dragged me into it. Yeah. Michael Neal, we're talking about. He is the dearest man, and he put up with me for several years trying to get me to write a book. And I said, Michael, you write books. You're just great at it, and you just think it's fun and all of that. I don't know how to write a book. And he, for whatever reason, just wouldn't take that for an answer. But he was just about ready to give up, I think. And one day he just said, well, why don't you just write letters? And I thought, oh, all right. I can write letters. They're short. They're simple and they're short. I can write letters. So that's what that book is. It's, I think, 13 letters. Mm-hmm. I did ask him why he didn't mention that before, but he hadn't thought of it before. So
he's smart, but maybe not that smart.
Well, I think there is something that happens when you're ready to give up. Something else occurs to you that never occurred to you when you're trying to get somebody to do something that they thought they couldn't do. Well, okay. Don't write a book. How about you write letters? Oh.
Isn't that funny that you couldn't write a book, but you did write a book? And
don't say that because I don't know how to write a book.
You still don't know how to write a book.
No, no, I just write letters. Well, I used to see, I know that simple is kind of a mantra with me, but it didn't seem like I had enough to say to fill a book. Books have a lot of pages in them. And, you can't be writing a 600, 700, 800 page book about how simple things are. I mean, that doesn't just make any sense at all. So I thought it would be just such a tiny little book. If I just, I don't have that much to say, but I can write letters. This work that we do, Steph, is uh, I'm assuming that you don't think it's really work either. That it's just one of our favorite things to do with our time here on the planet. And it's, for me, just if helping one another live a nice life isn't part of the plan, then I don't get the whole plan. So we're back to asking for help sort of thing. There are a lot of people that help me so that at age 83, I can still do this. I could not do this without, say, Azul, who is another person that teaches what I teach, but she also helps me with electronics because my brain freezes every time I think of anything electronic. It's just, and she helps me to be able to do this. I would not be able to do it without her. It just, she sees the world of electronics simple. I look at it like a fishing line that's got a million knots in it, and I'm supposed to untie it. I have no idea how to do that. I have chiropractors, I have doctors, I have people that help me with my house. None of us stands alone. We need each other. Everybody has gifts that are completely, wonderfully useful to someone else. And we should see it as another gift that to drop our fear of asking and just ask. Because that's what we're here for, to help one another. That's what
I had mentioned to you about my interest in the topic of service.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm actually in the beginning, at the beginning of a 90-day beyond service exploration. And it started out inspired by a book by Melissa Ford called Living Service, A Journey of a Prosperous Coach, where the idea is to, for 90 days, focus on serving powerfully as a means of growing your coaching business. But very quickly, that's not what I and my little group of co-explorers ended up doing, because I was just far more interested in what is service in the first place and what does that mean? And one of the things that I've been seeing about service, and another experiment I've been in around community, is that when I'm showing up just being me, without a lot on my mind, without a lot of thinking about what that is, helping others, serving people and the environment around me is really natural. It's not even something I need to think about. It just happens. It's like being in the grocery store and watching somebody struggling with a bag and just, oh, let me help you. It's that.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's that simple, we're together. We come together as a community without any thinking that we have about a community and whether I belong to these people, whether they're like me or they're different from me, whether I speak their language or they think I'm an idiot because I don't. And it also occurred to me, and I think this is part of what helped me do some more asking, is that like giving and receiving being two sides of the same coin, serving and being served, I don't know what that also feel like they go together. Like I can't really powerfully serve unless I'm also open to receiving everything. It's like this, it feels like this flow that isn't about me at all. It's just actually how the universe moves through us. And so service is becoming, it looks a lot less like something that I do and more like something that just happens when I'm being what I am. So I was curious what you might see or have seen about that.
Close to the same. Um, I ran across, I was going through my house getting rid of things, things in my house. And I came across some writing that I had done 20 years ago to myself to ask questions of my true self, my God self. And all part of kind of realizing one day what Sid meant when in a workshop one day he said, right now I'm not talking from who I am, I'm talking from that place where I don't know what I'm going to say next. And I thought, that's happened to me. Is that what he's talking about? And I always wondered what that was. And it always seemed like a kind of a magical thing that happened until I started realizing it's not magical. It's just divine science that we have a personal, learned, habitual voice. Sometimes it's wonderful, sometimes not so much. But we have our God voice too. We have that intelligence that we're made of that we can tap into at any moment. And so one of the questions I asked myself that, I can read it to you.
Yeah.
How the question was something about how best can I pass on what I know? The answer, you will teach the principles in a way about what they point to rather than teach them. You will not minimize them by naming them, but will teach from what they point to, the divinity of all life in all forms and our capacity to be God as form. You will be what you teach. It is already accomplished. Your clients and students will see themselves in the mirror of your being and will then see themselves as able to choose. It's not about what we do. It's not even about what we think we should do. It's just about seeing that who we actually are is in and of itself service. Just the Dalai Lama talks about religion. He said, religion is good for some, but my religion is kindness. Be kind in all things. And it's not just about being kind outwards. It's about being kind inwards, being kind to yourself in all things. Just being in kindness. There isn't anything more powerful than just being who you are. It's not like there's something better than that. And there's not like there's something you have to do to be who you are. It's taken care of. It's done. It's honestly that simple. And I keep, even at this ripe old age, I keep learning and learning and learning, but I'm learning the same thing, only, oh, it's that true. Even about that. Yeah, it's that true. It's not like there's something bigger and better and more powerful than simply understanding that who you are is always enough. It always was. It always will be. When you understand that, you really understand that, you elevate every interaction you have with anyone and anything.
Can you tell me more about that, Mavis? That when we really understand that what we are is always enough, we elevate everyone and everything.
Can you imagine that if you just never fought with anybody, even if they fight with fight, they want to fight. If you never fought with anybody and never was judgmental or mean spirited, or that you just kind of stood there and just be you. Can you see how that would change every interaction you have? It's really hard to fight with someone that just won't fight. It's really hard to be unkind to someone that's kind. And you're not trying to change anybody. You're not trying to fix anybody. You're not trying to elevate anything. You're just being yourself, but you are half of every interaction you have. And when half of it is peaceful and loving and kind and funny and lighthearted, no, nothing bad really is going to come from that very often. And the other person can feel what's going on. They can feel themselves being negative. They can feel themselves not being themselves. And I don't know what they're going to do with it, but that's none of my business. I think um, I tell this story. I'm going to tell you a story. I tell this story often because it was such a surprise to me. It was the first time I saw a choice that I didn't know I had. Um, it was a long time ago now, 35 years ago or so. I had by that time been exposed to what's not called the three principles. I don't call it anything because I don't know, it makes it too small to call it something. Anyway, I had been, I had kind of gotten the owner's manual to a certain degree. And my office was downtown Minneapolis, right across the street from just a beautiful park. And when I had time, I used to go out and walk around, see what's happening. So one day I went out, I stepped into the park up a few feet, and I heard this yelling profanities, just awful. And I turned around, and a few yards away, there was this guy sitting on a park bench, and he was yelling at me, calling me just completely disgusting names, and he had a whole bunch of sacks and stuff around him, so I think he was probably homeless. And this is what happened. I went over and I sat down by him, and I said to him, "Man, it sounds like you're having a really bad day." And he went, and he said, "Yeah, I am." And he started telling me about his bad day, and there was a lot of fumes coming off him, and I couldn't get most of the words, but I could tell he'd been having a bad day. And he talked for a while, and I just listened and was trying to get the gist of it. Um, and then he kind of wound down, and I said, "Oh, I'm sorry all that happened. It's such a beautiful day. I'm I'm sorry it's so painful for you." There are words to that effect. And he looked at me and he said, "I'm sorry you're an nice lady." He just, it was, and I said, "Oh, that's okay. I don't think he meant it." And he said, "No, I didn't mean it." And I said, "Well, I'm going to go finish my walk. I hope things get better for you." And I did. I just went and finished my walk. But about halfway around the park, I stopped and I thought, wait a minute. What was that? That is not what I would ordinarily have done. I I would ordinarily maybe yelled back at him or just slithered away or called the park police or something. But what I would not have done is gone anywhere near him, much less sat down by him. And I was just stunned. I thought, how did that happen? That That's the choice I made. I don't remember choosing that. I don't remember kind of weighing the possibilities one way or the other. I just went over there and sat down. That was a big deal to me, to see that it could be that easy to just go from habit to higher ground. It's just a choice that gets, if you understand you have an intelligence that you're made of that has nothing to do with the intelligence that you use up here. And that is where excellent choices are made. You have to know it's there. And I will never forget that, because that was the day I got introduced to my God self. I'd been walking around with it since I was born, just like everybody else. I just didn't know that it was that available and powerful, and that it was actually who I am. Any other decision was coming from a learned place, and there are good decisions made there. But there are a lot of decisions that are made there that keep us from a deeper sort of life because of fear. Because we didn't know that fear is on our side. It's letting us know when we're using this wonderful gift of thought to terrorize ourselves. That's actually not what it's for. Now, it doesn't mean that because of that day, I never, ever again entertained a bad habit. Not true. But it got harder to come from fear, because I knew something now that I didn't know before that day. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's service is just that. It's just being yourself in all things. And I forget that sometimes. But the difference now is, when I forget, I don't think that means I don't know what I know. It just means I forgot temporarily. It's always temporary. Everything's temporary. Everything. It's always good to know when I'm in a bad mood that it's just temporary. Just ignore myself. I'll be smarter in a minute.
I think it may have been you that I heard that from, and I started adopting it. And when I know I'm in a low mood, I'll say, well, my IQ's dropped. I'm really stupid right now. Please don't listen to me. I'm just going to take some time. I'll be better in a little while. Please. I'm dumb right
A
now.
little sign up here that is low mood warning.
It's so good to know that. I didn't know that from much of my life, most of my life, that it wasn't the world that felt so bad. It was just a low mood. It wasn't the world that was falling apart. It wasn't my life that was falling apart. It wasn't me that was wrong and broken. I was just having a low mood. Maybe I needed a snack or a nap.
Or just knowing it was just a low mood. That's it. That's enough.
Hmm.
So let me ask you a question.
Yeah, please.
So you might have noticed the planet is in a really bad mood. It's burning up. It's flooding. We have made a mess. We have not been taking care of our home. And what do you think would happen if everybody understood that they were capable of setting it all right if they would just calm down and listen to their true self? It was our bad habits, innocently, our bad habits that made the mess. But our true selves know how to clean it up.
If everyone knew that,
Mm.
like really knew that.
Yeah. But we can start one by one.
Yeah.
There are a lot of young people that get that are cleaning up, that are seeing that those of us who've gone before them have really made a mess. And they're serious about cleaning it up. We got to help them. And we can help them by just being ourselves and helping other people learn how to be themselves. We can't have a better past, but we can clean up some messes we made. And we need to do it.
I talk to a lot of people who see the mess that we've made with this planet, with our home, and really want to do something about it. And it weighs on them. The way they think about it, all the things that they think they need to do that feel like it's up to them, to the point where they're not really enjoying their lives much
So we
sometimes.
can do it without fear.
Yeah, like w- tell me more about that. Like how can we be with that?
There are a lot of people that are doing a really good job of explaining and describing the mess. Okay, got that. Now, what are we going to do about it? We can be afraid of what will happen if we don't. But how about if we just know what will happen if we don't? And we concentrate on what we can do about it. How about it's that simple? It's not unlike, what I do with, it's like there are lots of people that come to me and they want to describe what a mess they are. They want to describe what's wrong with them and what's broken, and they want to talk about all their fears and anger and regrets and so forth. I'm not going to help them if I spend too much time with them doing that. Um, I can help them by teaching them they aren't the messes they made. They aren't their thoughts about what's wrong with them. There isn't anything wrong with them. They just haven't known how well they're made. So what if everyone in the world is the client? And we say, we're not going to diagnose. We're not going to keep talking about what's wrong with you and why it's wrong and how it came about being wrong and all of that. We already know that. That's the name of the problem. What are we going to do about it? Calm down, relax your mind, and let that God-given creativity bloom. Let's get to work. Let's clean up the mess. There's all these shows on TV about people finding these absolute wrecks of houses and bringing them back to life. They look like they're just going to, if somebody slams a door, that's all going to fall on the ground. But people bring them back to life. And it's not just cosmetic. They fix the infrastructure, the foundation. They use clean materials. They make them efficient. We can do that for the planet. That's service.
Mm. For a long time, I was afraid to look. I was afraid to look at the world and the things that were going wrong. I didn't watch the news, which made a lot of sense to me at the time because I thought that the news was making me feel bad. So I didn't watch it. And it's kind of like I have my little blinders on because when I looked, I felt afraid. I felt inadequate. Maybe I felt guilt. But something changed a few years ago for me where I started feeling safe in a way I'd never felt before. I started feeling home inside of myself for the first time that I could remember in a really long time. And I noticed that when I did, my eyes opened up. The blinders came off and I started seeing people and animals and things around me. And I started doing small things like rescuing bats that were stranded on the screen of the lanai, or there were a bunch of bats actually at that time, or little lizards that got stuck in a room. I was living in Florida, and like that was just natural to do. And now I see people in those moments, small moments, and have conversations where before I would have just kept my head down and my mouth shut because I was afraid. And those conversations end up being surprisingly supportive or helpful to the person next to me. And so simple. And I think that there's such great hope in that when we do calm down, if we think about ourselves on our best day, when we just go through the whole day or even part of the day and just feel good, we are kind. We notice people in need. We do the little things, and the habits that I have don't seem so sticky and hard to overcome. They just, I don't even think about them.
How are you going to save the planet?
I have an idea, Mavis. I do.
That's,
I love bringing this to people in community. I like the idea of being a catalyst in community because the spark, the life, the intelligence is already there.
so what are
They
you going
don't,
to do?
what am I going to do? I'm going to be me, Mavis. I'm going to be
Good.
me and show up with people and show up with the world and see where it takes me. And it is. It is.
I saw this little story. It's been around for a long time about this guy that was walking on the beach and a whole bunch of starfish had washed up. They were wiggling around. And another guy saw this, and he saw this first guy pick up a starfish and toss it back in the water, and then pick up another one and toss it back. And the beach was covered with them. And the second guy walks up there and he says, "Man, there's hundreds of them here. What, what makes you think you're going to make a difference?" And the guy picked up another one and tossed it in and made a difference to that one. That's what you're going to do. That's a good thing.
And there's always a starfish nearby.
Yep.
I don't have to go far. I don't have to travel around the world. I might, but I don't have to.
Mm-hmm. Service.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I want to put in another plug for your book. And also, I have a question, just a wonder if there might be another not book full of letters that you might want to write, not write.
Yeah. I've learned not to say never.
I don't
But
know. Maybe your God voice has something to
we'll
say.
see. I am open to whatever. We'll see what happens.
So this book, It's That Simple by Mavis Karn. If you're watching video, you can see it, but I'll put a link to it. It is really simple. These letters are simple. It's like having a conversation with you, Mavis. And in it, just to give you a little hint as you're listening, it's the stuff that it's the secret to being human. It's the stuff that makes our lives easier when we know it. All the stuff that tells us how to enjoy being human. And it's simple. It doesn't get better than that. So if that's something that interests you, I really encourage you to get the book, buy the book for yourself or someone you care about. I sure have, and I sure will.
Thank you very much. People have the means. I would ask them to get one and give it to a kid, particularly maybe a teenager. There are a lot of teenagers really suffering because of isolation from COVID and so forth, and they are having a hard time. And if I could, I would give a book to every teenager on the planet. I haven't figured out how to carry that out yet, but if people have the means, I'd like to ask them to give one to a kid.
It's beautiful. And perhaps just asking that here starts the creation of it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
So I will post some links to your book. Is there a best place people can go to learn more about you, Mavis, if they'd like to stay connected?
At maviskarn.net, there's a site.
Beautiful.
I'm really not hiding. I'm just,
Not anymore, anyway.
I wasn't ever. I was just, I was just doing my work.
Mm.
You know, people dragged me into a spotlight. I had kind of an allergy to spotlights, but I'm okay. It's okay. I'm meeting all kinds of wonderful, wonderful human beings.
Wow. You look amazing to me, whether it's in a spotlight or not. And thank you for being you and just sharing.
Well, thank you for asking me. Take good care.
I will.
Thanks so much for joining me for today's Wildspire conversation. If you'd like to receive a weekly Wildspire email from me filled with inspiring stories, unmarketing experiments, tips for playing your way to impact and income without the hustle and hype, insights from my spiritual business journey, and more, go to theawakenedbusiness.com/Wildspire. Until next time, may you know yourself as the gorgeous wild creation you are.